So New York Times is a very interesting and ironic story here because it goes to show about what a terrible job the reporters are doing on the campaign trail, including New York Times reporters. Now, of course, they would say they don't have a choice, but the reality is, of course, they have a choice. So what's happening? Well, it turns out that there's new ground rules for how you can quote people on the campaign, which is to say that you pretty much can't quote them unless you have explicit permission. So let me give you some quotes from the story. The press office has veto power over what statements can be quoted and attributed by name. Now that's the Obama White House's press office. Well, then what happened to reporting? So if they have total veto power over what you put in the story, you might as well print their press release. But it keeps getting worse and worse. They say from Capitol Hill to the Treasury Department, interviews granted only with, quote, approval have become the default position, meaning that that is what is assumed going forward, that you cannot quote anybody. That's not journalism. That's just taking down notes and almost basically propaganda. Okay, so it's not just the White House either. To give you a sense, first of all, though, of the people playing by these rules, organizations like Bloomberg, Washington Post, Vanity Fair, Reuters, New York Times have all consented to interviews under such terms. Again, with the Obama campaign as opposed to the Obama White House. Quote approval is standard practice for the Obama campaign. Remember, these are supposed to be reporters who are supposed to be dogged. Oh, they're pursuing the campaigns. Oh, it's so tough for running for president now because these guys are, they'll really rip you apart. Of course, they can't because we have approval over any quotes they might use, so they can't ever possibly use a quote that would be damaging to the Obama campaign because it would get redlined and taken out by the campaign. What are we, the Soviet Union? This is unbelievable. It's just retire then. Go home. Clean up. Go home, as Robert De Niro says in Heat. Clean up. Go home. You're useless. This is what the Soviet Union used to do. Our official press release is this. Oh, okay, great. Thanks. That's really informative. And then, of course, it also is the Romney campaign. The Romney campaign insists that journalists interviewing any of Mitt Romney's 5 sons agree to use only quotations that are approved by the press office. Then why am I bothering interviewing them? Why don't you just give me a press release of what they theoretically said? Continuing. And Romney advisors almost always require that reporters ask them for the green light on anything from a conversation that they would like to include in an article. So, you want to include anything in an article, you got to run it by Romney's team. Okay, now all this is horrible and shows you that there's almost no reporting from the campaigns at all, any real reporting. Just taking down whatever they want you to take down means that you became their PR people, not their reporters. You're not their watchdogs, you're their lapdogs. But it gets even worse. Now, the Obama White House has invented a new term. Now, when you did background briefings, that meant, hey, listen, you can't quote the people officially. Now, I don't know whether they should have ever agreed to that under any circumstances at any point, right? But they have. Now, there is something that they call deep background briefing. So what is that? Well, reporters are forbidden to put anything in quotation marks or identify the speakers. So not only can you not identify the speakers, you can't even put their quotes in quotes. So, I mean, nobody would want to get in trouble, right? So they have these briefings where they go, okay, this is our policy position. Now, shut up and write it down exactly as we tell you. In fact, don't even write it down exactly as we tell you. Later, we're going to go back and edit it just in case we said it slightly wrong in a way that would be slightly disadvantageous to us. Which reporter agrees to this crap? How do you call yourself a journalist? This is the free press? This is what our founding fathers fought to protect? You've all become a giant joke. You're not going to get any news this way. All you get is, you become their flax. You become their PR department. You're an embarrassment. So this is the sorry state of so-called journalism in America. And then when anyone actually does real reporting, finds out what the government is actually up to, what happens? Oh my God, Julian Assange is wanted man. He's horrible. How could he release actual information the government doesn't want you to know? Don't you know that we're only supposed to take down the notes that the government tells us and then approves of later? You know that at this point, according to that New York Times story, you can't even quote their spokespeople? But that's their whole job. The job of the spokesperson is to get quoted. They're like, no, you can't do it anymore unless we pre-approve. And then when New York Times went to speak to the reporters on the campaign, they said, we'll only talk to you off the record. Well, now it's everybody. So there's no reporting left in the country. That's why they're so bitter at people like Julian Assange who actually do their jobs. That's why Bradley Manning, instead of being considered an American hero like Daniel Ellsberg was when he blew the whistle on the Nixon administration in Vietnam, Bradley Manning blowing the whistle on Iraq and Afghanistan, let alone Tunisia and Egypt, and having a huge role in creating the Arab Spring. What happens instead? Bradley Manning aiding the enemy, danger to the republic. Of course he was jailed, tortured for 9 months, in what CIA calls non-touch torture, sleep deprivation, forced nudity, isolation, etc. Well, of course, he's an enemy of the state. What notes do you need me to take down, government? You wonder why we think this media in this country, this establishment media, is a giant joke and pathetic. This is why.